What has been in operation for decades, can go for days, and has China's top brass sick with worry? No, it's not Diego, the giant Galapagos tortoise who is over 100 years old and has fathered an estimated 900 offspring, nor is it the Beverley clock in Dunedin, New Zealand, which has been running continuously since 1864. There's nothing to suggest that those things have the People's Liberation Army or PLA worried. Instead, it's something much more pragmatic that has the Chinese military sweating. We're talking about the B-52H Stratofortress. The US has the largest and most lethal air force in the world by far, with over 13,000 active aircraft in its fleet as of 2025. That includes advanced fighters and bombers like the B-21 stealth bomber, B-2 Spirit bomber, F-35 Lightning II, F-22 Raptor, and F-18 Super Hornet. Undoubtedly, the PLA takes the threat posed by this fleet very seriously. You'd be a fool not to. But it's the grandfather of the fleet, the B-52, first introduced in the 1950s, that apparently causes them the gravest concern. Let's find out why. The latest warnings about the B-52 emerged in a recent study published in China's leading security journal, Modern Defense Technology. The research identified the B-52 Stratofortress as the US's most significant threat in a penetrating counter-air operation targeting Chinese naval fleets or inland sites. But that's not the first time this doyen of the US Air Force has been highlighted by Chinese military experts as the primary threat to China's air security. Back in 2022, Fu Qianshao and Zhang Zhufeng, Chinese military aviation experts, told the Chinese newspaper Global Times that the B-52, used in conjunction with the B-21 stealth bomber, remained the biggest threat to China from the US. So what is it about the B-52 that has elevated cortisol levels coursing through Chinese military veins? The bomber has certainly proven its worth over the decades and remains an integral part of the US's fleet, despite the 76 B-52s still in service with the US Air Force having been delivered no later than 1962. For more than 60 years, the B-52s have been the backbone of the US Strategic Bomber Force. The B-52 took its maiden flight in April 1952, and the first of the 102 B-52Hs, the last of the variants to be serially produced, was delivered to Strategic Air Command in May 1961. Altogether, a total of 744 B-52s across all variants were built, with the last of them delivered in October 1962. Commonly referred to as the Buff, short for Big Ugly Fat Fucker, or in more polite conversation, Fella. The B-52 was built to carry nuclear weapons for Cold War deterrence missions. On May 21, 1956, a B-52B dropped a Mark 15 nuclear bomb over the Bikini Atoll in a test codenamed Cherokee, the first air-dropped thermonuclear weapon. However, to date, in actual warfare, it has only ever dropped conventional weapons, albeit truckloads of them. Initially, the Strategic Air Command intended to use the B-52 to deter and counteract the rapidly modernizing Soviet Union military. To that end, starting in the late 1950s and continuing throughout the Cold War, B-52s performed airborne alert patrols under code names such as Head Start, Chrome Dome, Hardhead, Round Robin, and Giant Lance. These missions involved loitering at high altitudes near the borders of the Soviet Union to provide rapid first strike or retaliation capability in case of nuclear war. But their mere presence in such proximity to the USSR also projected US power, acting as a deterrence against carrying out a first strike for the Soviets, as it does for the Chinese today. After late 1950s upgrades enabled it to operate at lower altitudes to defeat Soviet radar and to field standoff missiles with an extended range, the B-52 was now the Soviets' biggest nightmare. However, it wasn't the Soviets on whom the B-52 offensive power was first unleashed, but rather the Viet Cong. Starting from 1965, B-52s were used extensively during the Vietnam War, particularly for carpet bombing missions. Several new variants, including the B-52D and F, were upgraded to extend the bomber's payloads to 108 bombs with a total payload of almost 60,000 pounds. The B-52 carpet bombing raids in Vietnam peaked at the end of 1972 with Operation Linebacker 2, also known as the Christmas bombings. Over the course of 12 days from December 18th to 29th, waves of B-52s flew 729 sorties and dropped 15,237 tons of bombs on Hanoi, Haiphong, and other targets in North Vietnam. As you can imagine, with that kind of relentless hell raining down from the sky, the B-52s caused massive damage to the North Vietnamese, but they weren't invincible. In total, 34 B-52s were lost during the war, including 10 shot down over North Vietnam. So after the war, the US took stock and considered how to use them more effectively, particularly for low-level tactics. Most of the older models were retired from service, with the remaining fleet modernized with new weapons, equipment, and both offensive and defensive avionics. When the Soviet Union collapsed in the early 1990s, all 365 nuclear-armed B-52Gs, still in service, were destroyed in accordance with the terms of the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or START. But that was hardly the end of their use by the US military. B-52 strikes were an important part of Operation Desert Storm, during which they set a world record for the longest distance combat mission. On January 16, 1991, 7 B-52Gs flew from Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana, refueled in the air en route, struck targets in Iraq, and returned home, a 14,000-mile round trip that took 35 hours. Those were actually the first combat sorties of Operation Desert Storm, and B-52s were then used extensively throughout the campaign. All told, B-52s flew about 1,620 sorties during Desert Storm, delivering around 40% of the weapons dropped by coalition forces. Later in 1996, during Operation Desert Strike, 2 B-52s broke the record for the longest-distance combat mission again. The B-52s struck Baghdad power stations and communications facilities with 13 AGM-86C cruise missiles during a 34-hour, 16,000-mile round trip from Andersen Air Force Base in Guam, on the other side of the planet. B-52s were used extensively in Operation Allied Force in the former Yugoslavia in 1999, Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan in 2001, and Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. More recently, B-52s were used extensively as part of Operation Inherent Resolve against ISIS in Syria and Iraq in 2016, in Afghanistan from 2016 to 21, and in Syria in 2018 and again in December 2024. The B-52 can also be employed in ocean surveillance, anti-ship, and mine-laying operations. After all, a pair of B-52s in 2 hours can monitor 140,000 square miles of ocean surface. In the 1970s, the US Navy worried that combined attacks from Soviet bombers, submarines, and warships could overwhelm its defenses and sink its aircraft carriers. So to counter this threat, from the 1980s, B-52Hs were modified to use a wide range of cruise missiles, laser and satellite-guided bombs, and unguided munitions. B-52 bomber crews also honed sea-skimming flight profiles that would allow them to penetrate stiff enemy defenses and attack Soviet ships and mine-laying tasks. Mine-laying by B-52s in order to choke off Russian, Chinese, North Korean, or Iranian fleets remains a key US naval strategy to this day. During the 2015 Baltops exercise, B-52s conducted mine-laying missions off the coast of Sweden, simulating a counter-amphibious invasion mission in the Baltic. This extensive operational history is undoubtedly part of the reason why the B-52 is of such concern to the PLA. The Buff is the stuff of legend. How many other aircraft can boast 3 generations of the same family as pilots, or claim their own hairstyle, 1980s rock band, and cocktail? More pragmatically, not many aircraft or their pilots have experience in so many different types of mission: low altitude, high altitude, troop support, carpet bombing, mine laying, and so on. Of course, today's B-52s are not the same planes they were when they rolled off the assembly line in the 1960s. All of the 76 still in service are of the B-52H variety. The other variants were all retired from 1991 to 1994, if not before. Billions of dollars have been spent maintaining the B-52Hs in the subsequent decades, and tens of billions more have been and are still being spent upgrading them with the latest technology. The B-52H of today has the same shape, frame, and engine as when it entered service, but pretty much everything else has had a major upgrade. The plane can accommodate a crew of 5, a pilot, co-pilot, weapons system officer, navigator, and electronic warfare officer. Its massive frame is over 159 feet long and stands over 40 feet high, with an enormous wingspan of 185 feet. Empty, it weighs 185,000 pounds, and it can carry a maximum weight of 488,000 pounds at takeoff. It can also carry over 312,000 pounds or 48,000 gallons of fuel. Even without in-air refueling, that gives the B-52H a combat range of 8,800 miles. Its 8 powerful Pratt & Whitney TF33 P3103 turbofan engines generate a thrust of 17,000 pounds each. That kind of power enables a cruising speed of 509 miles per hour, a maximum speed of 650 miles per hour, and a service ceiling of 50,000 feet. Most of those specs are exactly as they were when the planes were delivered in the early 1960s. However, as noted earlier, the avionics and other systems have all evolved substantially. Today's fleet of B-52Hs employs an electro-optical viewing system that uses platinum silicide forward-looking infrared and high-resolution low-light level television sensors. For targeting, they include either the Lightning Advanced Targeting System or the upgraded Sniper Advanced Targeting Pod. along with the IBM AP101 avionics computer. In terms of countermeasures, they feature 12 ANALE-20 infrared flare dispenser systems, 8 ANALE-24 chaff dispenser systems, the ANALQ-122 multiple false target generator, ANALQ-153 tail missile approach warning system, ANALQ-155 jammer power management system, ANALQ-172V electronic countermeasure system, ANALR-20A radar warning system, ANALR-46 digital radar warning receiver, and ANALT-32 noise jammer. Although by no stretch of the imagination a stealth plane, this vast array of countermeasure systems provides the B-52H with formidable offenses against all manner of enemy detection, tracking, and targeting systems. That's another reason the PLA is so concerned about the B-52H. Its vast range and endurance, coupled with its defenses, make the B-52H the kind of foe that just won't go away. If they can fly for 36 hours straight to hit Iraq from Guam, they can certainly cover the South China Sea, or in fact anywhere on the Chinese mainland, with ease. And with their ability to strike with long-range standoff weapons from beyond the range of China's radar coverage and air defense missile range, they're a serious challenge to defend against. The B-52H can carry up to 70,000 pounds of ordnance, a truly jaw-dropping amount. What's more, that includes the widest array of weapons in the US inventory. In terms of missiles, it can deploy the long-range AGM-86 Air-Launched Cruise Missile, or ALCM, capable of carrying both conventional and nuclear warheads. It can also carry the stealthy AGM-129 Advanced Cruise Missile, AGM-84 Harpoon Antiship Missile, AGM-142 Raptor Long-Range Air-to-Ground Missile, nuclear-capable AGM-69 Short-Range Attack Missile, or SRAM, and the Long-Range Precision-Guided Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile, or JASSM. For lower-altitude troop support bombing missions, it can also wield conventional bombs like the Mark 82, Mark 84, and 750-pound M117, JDAM GPS-guided bombs and Snake-Eye retarded bombs for precision strikes. It's also particularly well-suited for dropping cluster munitions, including CBU-52, CBU-58, and CBU-71 cluster bombs, CBU-87 combined effects cluster munitions, the anti-tank and anti-personnel CBU-89 Gator, and wind-corrected munitions dispensers to dispense these cluster bombs. As if that weren't enough, it can also carry Mark 52, Mark 59, and Mark 62 naval mines for the aforementioned mine-laying missions, as well as M129 leaflet dispensers for psychological operations. This vast flexibility in the type of payloads that it can unleash is the primary reason that the Chinese consider the B-52H to be the most significant threat posed to its defenses by the US. Since 2015, B-52s have been increasingly used by the US in the Indo-Pacific region, to the great distress of the Chinese. Missions mostly include freedom of passage operations to ensure safe passage of US and Allied ships through contested waters in the South China Sea, but they also include missions aimed at soft power projection, much like the missions conducted near Soviet borders 60 years previously. These often take the form of flybys over Taiwan and North Korea. In one notorious incident in October 2023, a Chinese J-11 fighter flew within 10 feet of a B-52 on one such mission, causing a heated international incident. These deployments to the region, often accompanied by fighter escorts and supported by aerial tankers, demonstrate a layered approach to deterrence that China struggles to counter. The PLA has greatly improved its military capabilities over the last decade. Modernizations like the DF-31A mobile intercontinental ballistic missiles and Jin-class ballistic missile submarines have significantly bolstered its nuclear strike capability. However, the B-52's ability to strike from afar, and with such a variety of weaponry, presents a challenge that China's air defenses and counter-strike capabilities are still evolving to meet. In particular, the B-52's ability to operate beyond the reach of most Chinese weapons gives it a strategic advantage in potential conflicts. Furthermore, its ability to adapt to new missions, from nuclear deterrence to precision strikes, makes it a uniquely versatile asset. Its dual role as a strategic and tactical platform makes it capable of shaping conflicts at multiple levels. A case in point is the B-52's ability to deploy long-range cruise missiles. The PLA has invested heavily in air defense systems like the HQ-9 and Russian-made S-400, designed to counter aircraft and missiles. But B-52s can launch the AGM-86B, for instance, from outside the range of those and most other Chinese air defense systems, flying low to evade radar detection. China's radar networks, while advanced, face challenges in detecting low-flying targets over vast maritime or mountainous regions. Judging from the Modern Defense Technology Study, Chinese planners are also particularly worried about the B-52's capacity to strike naval fleets and aircraft carrier groups, or critical infrastructure like command centers and missile silos. These fears are amplified by the US's extensive network of bases and alliances in the region, which provide logistical support for B-52 operations across the Indo-Pacific. In ground battles, B-52s can also play a decisive role. Loaded with 12 JDAM GPS-guided bombs or 4 to 10 GBU laser-guided bombs, they can orbit over battle zones, awaiting close air support requests from troops on the ground. Of course, a fighter jet can do the same job, but fighters have a shorter range, more limited ordnance, and can't loiter overhead for nearly as long. But the threat that has them sweating most profusely is the B-52's ability to deploy low-yield tactical nuclear weapons in a limited conflict. China's nuclear doctrine is centered on a no-first-use policy and assured retaliation. As such, it maintains a relatively small nuclear arsenal focused on surviving a first strike and delivering a counterattack. The B-52's potential to deploy long-range cruise missiles tipped with tactical nuclear warheads challenges this strategy by threatening key assets before China can respond. These are all entirely valid reasons for the Chinese to be more concerned about the B-52 than the US's newer and technically more advanced aircraft. The F-22 Raptor, designed for air superiority, excels in dogfights and penetrating contested airspace. However, when it comes to the diversity of payload and range offered by the B-52, there's no competition. The F-22 can't carry nuclear weapons, and with a combat radius of about 600 miles, it requires forward bases, which are vulnerable to Chinese ballistic and cruise missile attacks. The F-35 Lightning II, while versatile and certified to carry the B-61-12 nuclear bomb, has a combat radius of approximately 700 miles and a smaller payload capacity than the B-52. Its advanced stealth makes it ideal for penetrating heavily defended areas, but its shorter range and higher logistical demands makes it less suited for long-distance strikes from secure bases than the B-52. The B-2 Spirit offers stealth, speed, and a variety of ordnance, including 30,000-pound GBU-57 bunker-busting bombs. But there are only 20 of them in service. They are somewhat temperamental, and they cost $135,000 an hour to fly and maintain, almost twice the $70,000 per hour flying cost of the B-52. That expense and the Spirit's reduced fuel and bomb load mean the US is much more likely to utilize the B-52s for most mission types in the event of a large-scale confrontation with China. The B-1B Lancer, on the other hand, does perform largely similar missions to the B-52. It can carry more munitions and at 830 miles per hour, fly 25% faster and with less visibility on radar. But in today's air defense environment, it's still too visible to be a proper stealth plane and too slow to avoid interception. So even though it's a more modern, objectively superior plane compared to the B-52, the Air Force would likely be reluctant to send it into well-defended environments. The B-21 Raider is certainly something the PLA is very worried about, as highlighted in the study. A long-range, stealth and nuclear-capable bomber that can cross oceans and operate undetected by powerful air defenses should worry anyone having to try and defend against it. But they're still in development, not too much is known about them, so it's difficult for the Chinese to effectively account for them in their current strategic defense planning. So for now, their biggest concern is the B-52. And if the thought of the B-52H is already giving them headaches, they'd better stock up on powerful migraine tablets. That's because the US's B-52s are currently in the process of receiving another major upgrade, which will convert them into B-52Js. All 76 are being upgraded with new engines, digital data links, moving map displays, next-generation avionics, new radios, and an ability to carry more weapons internally and integrate new, high-tech weapons as they emerge. That includes the capability to deploy the forthcoming Air-Launched Rapid Response Weapon or ARROW hypersonic missile. An upgraded Combat Network Communications Technology System or CONNECT now also allows the B-52 to collect real-time intelligence data for better situational awareness. CONNECT also permits the crew to retarget a missile in flight, so the B-52 could deliver its ordnance and stay in the air to be an airborne command and control plane. Each aircraft will also receive 8 brand new F-130 engines made by Rolls-Royce. This will extend their range even further and add more endurance. The F-130 will also require fewer maintenance hours and less fuel than the original Pratt & Whitney, reducing costs and the need for aerial refueling. In images of the upgraded plane released in 2022, the engine nacelles are set higher and further forward than at present, in part to allow greater ground clearance. The nose of the aircraft will also be streamlined. Gone will be the blisters that currently house the forward-looking infrared electro-optical viewing system, replaced by a new radar, a variant of the AN/APG-79 used on the Boeing FA-18EF Super Hornet. The B-52J is also getting an updated cockpit, a hybrid analog-digital engine control system, communications and navigation enhancements, and the deletion of one crew member station. These upgrades add to a massive internal weapons bay upgrade carried out in recent years. The 1760 Internal Weapons Bay Upgrade, or IWBU, allows the B-52 to internally carry up to 8 of the newest J-series bombs, in addition to 6 on pylons under each wing. The B-52 has previously been able to carry JDAM weapons externally, but with the IWBU, the aircraft will be able to internally house some of the most cutting-edge precision-guided Joint Direct Attack munitions and Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff missiles, among others. These upgrades are designed to keep the B-52 active until the 2040s, not the 2050s. Fortunately for the Chinese, they may have a few years to prepare for the added threat that this new, improved B-52 will present. According to a 2024 Government Accountability Office report, initial operational capability for the B-52J won't be achieved until 2033, 3 years past the original plan. However, given the diversity and scale of the threats posed by the current incarnation of the B-52, that's likely to be little comfort to the PLA's generals. But what do you think? Is it naive or astute for the Chinese to pick out the B-52 as the primary US threat? Will the B-21 Raider be able to compete with it in the long run? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you, as always, for watching.